G'day everybody, we're here with another Bears legend on a Saturday afternoon. Today we're here with Andrew Simons. Thank you very much,
Mate,
Andrew.
lovely to meet you.
Pleasure to have you on our page, mate. Can you give us a rundown on where you started with your footy career as you come up through the ranks?
Yeah, oh gee, such a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's going to test the brain cells.
Yeah.
Look, I started out as I think all people from my era. You know, we all started out as junior footballers.
Yep.
You know, wherever my parents lived,
Yep.
I would then go and play with their junior teams, which was really interesting. I was a Barella Bear for a while. I was a Parramatta
Okay.
Junior Eel
Yeah.
for a while. But eventually settled out at Lane Cove, which
Yeah.
is my junior North Sydney club.
Right.
Had a very, very brief stint for a little while with Pennant Hills. I think they're called the Stags or something in those days.
Yeah.
So
Stags.
yeah, Pennant Hills
Yeah.
for a little while. But basically, you would say at North Sydney, my home was with Lane Cove.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And so, how did you get to play for the Bears,
Ah.
Andrew?
Look, I started out with their development squad,
Mhm.
which was I think for under 13s or under 14s. Went down to Flat Rock Oval at Willoughby there and
Okay.
trained down there every Saturday and Sunday or every Sunday morning.
Mhm.
And then I was picked in the North Sydney SG Ball squad, which was under 15s in those days.
Right.
And I was playing with Lane Cove Tigers.
Yep.
And yeah, that was basically it. Played SG ball.
Yep.
At the end of that season, the SG ball only went for about 4 or 5 weeks at the commencement of the season.
Right.
And you go back to your junior league club and play out the rest of the season.
Right.
I became a bit small. I was a halfback in those days,
Yeah.
and I was a bit small. So after that stint, from about 16, 17. Having been bashed a fair bit by everyone that grew taller and better than me,
Absolutely.
I ended up pulling the pin
Yeah.
and refereeing for a couple of seasons.
There you go.
But then when I caught up with everyone, I got back in to rep
Playing
footy,
again.
and I played Flegg and President's Cup with
Okay.
North Sydney.
Yeah. Yep.
Had a stint across with the University Cup when I began my teaching training out at Nepean College, which is at Kingswood,
Yeah.
the foot of the mountains.
Yeah.
And it was and it was a bit hard to commute
Yeah,
from there
long
to
way.
North Sydney training. I was graded with North Sydney,
Yeah.
but had to decline the offer because I just couldn't manage the transport.
Yeah.
So I had
Okay.
a couple of years with North Sydney. With the University Cup.
Yeah.
Went back to North as soon as I could.
Yeah.
Trialled for the under 23s.
Yeah.
And then for the under 23s, I had 3 games in the under 23s.
Yeah.
Chow Hayes tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're with my squad.
Yeah,
You're up to
nice.
reserve grade."
Yeah. Cool.
And then the following year, which was 1982,
Yeah.
I debuted in first grade for North Sydney.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
That's a long story.
Wow. So that was a quick transition from under 23s into first grade, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't have much time.
No.
And one of the really good things was, you know, sort of I played 3 games in under 23s, then up to Chow's team in reserve grade,
Yeah.
and then, you know, Ron Willie said, "Can you stand by for first grade?" So,
Yeah.
you know, I'd come from virtually University Cup
Yeah.
to standing by for first grade inside 4 games.
Yeah.
You know,
That's unreal.
I had to pinch myself,
Yeah.
you know, because I'm sitting there watching guys that
Yeah.
I grew up loving, you know, the John Greys and
Yeah.
the Keith Harrises and
Yeah.
the Don McKinnons.
Yeah.
You know, suddenly
Yeah.
I'm sitting beside them
Yeah.
and in the dressing rooms with them.
Yeah,
I'm almost
wow.
pinching myself. Is
Yeah.
this real? How
So
did this happen?
So what was it like when you first ran out and you were playing with those blokes?
Oh, it was
You know?
it was such a buzz.
Yeah.
You know, because as I said, these were the guys that, you know, I grew up collecting their footy cards, you know,
Yeah.
getting their signatures,
Yeah.
and to be out there with them was just,
Yeah.
you know, it was just brilliant.
Yeah.
And then after training on a Tuesday, we'd always play cards,
Yeah.
and you know, I think I walked past the table and they needed an extra person, and they said, "Can you play?"
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah, I'll play.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm sitting there beside all these guys playing cards, having a beer with them.
Yeah. That's great, isn't it?
I thought,
Yeah.
life couldn't get any better.
Better. Yeah. Dead right. Yeah. So you were the highest try scorer in '88. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. In
Yeah.
1988, I topped the try scoring list,
Yeah.
which was, we had a good side in '88,
Yeah.
and I debuted in '82.
Yeah. That was a good team we had in '82.
Oh, it was a
Like-
great side in '82,
Yeah.
and look, one of the things about the '82 side was we beat every team in the competition
Yeah.
at least once, with the
Mhm.
exception of the eventual premiers, Parramatta.
Yeah,
They beat us. They
okay.
were the only team that beat us twice.
Yeah.
And we had such a great side.
Yeah.
And it was a young side,
Mhm.
inexperienced.
Yeah.
A lot of them, like myself, were
Mhm.
first year in,
Yeah.
or maybe halfway through, their first year.
Yeah.
And I believe that a really good first grader doesn't come into their own until you've had about 50 first grade games.
Yeah.
And then you can cope with the crowd, you can you can cope with the adversity,
Yeah.
the press and all
Yeah,
that
the
sort of
media
thing.
and stuff. Yeah.
And we were this embryonic side
Mhm.
waiting to happen in
Yeah.
'82, and then unfortunately, whatever happened, we lost Ron Willie as the coach,
Yeah.
who I think was a really good mentor.
Mhm.
And then we weren't able to capitalise on that youth that was coming through.
Yeah.
I honestly believe that we were a potential dynasty of
Yeah, okay.
great players
Yeah.
in '82.
Coming
We'd
through.
just done it differently in '83 and '84.
Yeah.
We could have really built something
Mm.
momentous.
Yeah. And then '85.
'85, they appointed Greg Haywick as the coach.
Mhm.
I liked Greg as a
Yep.
person,
Yep.
and I thought he had some good ideas.
Mhm.
But he was a little bit out of his depth coming from country football to coaching first grade football.
Yeah.
And in doing that, he didn't really get the support of a couple of the key players.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it was very difficult for him.
Yeah. Well, that makes the job a lot harder.
Oh,
doesn't
it made
right?
it so much harder for him. And North
Mm.
sacked him midway through the season,
Yeah. Okay.
which was heartbreaking for him.
Yeah.
I can tell you that, and not many people know this, I'll
Mhm.
share this with
Oh, brilliant.
people there.
Is it scoop, fellas?
Yeah, it's good. We used to celebrate victories and losses, in the sports bar at North Sydney,
Yeah.
and I was in the toilets
Yeah.
at North Sydney, having a break,
Yeah.
and Greg came in,
Yeah.
and we stood beside me,
Mhm.
and he just turned to me and said, "Mate, you're getting a new coach."
Wow.
And he said, I said, "What?" And he said, "I've just come from upstairs.
Yeah.
They just sacked me."
Wow.
And I was the first person that he told.
Yeah. Okay.
And
wow.
one thing that struck me about that, and I've carried with me, is that
Mhm.
he was a man that was shattered.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
lose that,
Yeah,
he was
absolutely.
an intensely proud man.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I saw
Mm.
a person who was very vulnerable
Mm.
and really hurt
Yeah.
by what had happened to him. It
Yeah.
sort of changed my
Mm.
opinion on the sacking of coaches and the
Mhm.
sacking of anyone.
Yeah.
It's a really traumatic process that they
absolutely.
have to go through.
Yeah.
It was fairly brutal to happen in such a
Mm.
public way.
Yeah. Wow. So.
Yeah. So then they replaced Greg with
Yeah.
Chicken Norton,
Yeah. Yeah.
who was coaching reserve grade at the time. Chicken
Mm.
was a lovely man,
Yeah.
and a real North Sydney man.
Mm.
And he had this for the remainder of that season,
Yeah.
and then the next
Next
season.
one. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So he was a great man, Chica,
Mhm.
and everyone just would play football for Chica.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Like, we just loved him to bits.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And he was just such a lovely person.
Yeah.
But again, unfortunately, lovely people sometimes
Mm.
don't always make the best person in the job, and
Yeah,
as
yeah,
much as we
absolutely.
tried for, and,
Yeah.
and I think people forget, we made the semi-final playoff under Chica in '86.
Yeah.
There was two teams, I think, that finished fifth. It
Mhm.
might have been us and Balmain, I think.
Right.
So we played off for the fifth spot on a Wednesday night,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and we got beaten.
Yeah.
And so Balmain went into the semi-finals
As
and
a
we
fifth
missed
one.
out.
Yeah. Mm.
And unfortunately, I probably had one of my worst games
Mm.
in that particular playoff.
Yeah.
And I felt really gutted at the end of it that I let Chica down,
Yeah.
because I
okay.
wanted so much
Too
for
much
Chica
for
to be
Chica.
successful.
Yeah.
After that, we then had Frank Stanton come across.
Yeah.
The guy that coached the team that beat Chica. He got the job in '87 and in '88.
Yeah.
And then I departed Norths in the end of the '88 season and had 2 seasons over with Penrith.
Yeah. Okay. So, what did you get up to after the Bears? After footy?
Look, I've got to say, it's been a fairly diverse career. Look, I've had a bit of a go at everything, but primarily, I suppose, post the Penrith, I finished with Penrith in 1990, which I was part of their first grand final team.
Yeah, well,
I didn't get the foot onto the ground, I was on the bench, but I got to be part of that, and I've got a medal at home that says I was in a grand final.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great. I think one of the very few North Sydney players that have got a first grade medal, first North Sydney juniors that have got a first grade grand final medal. But then I worked for the Australian Rugby League for 10 years down in Melbourne, and then part of that brief was to lay the foundations as the development manager and then general manager of the league. Our brief was to establish a viable competition for when a senior team could come into the competition, which we worked at for 10 years. And at the end of that tenure, I think probably year 8, 9, maybe 9 and 10, year 9 and 10, the Melbourne Storm came in and we laid the foundations for that.
That's awesome. That's really good. Yeah. So. Just jumping back to the '82 team. You played with Johnny Gray. What was Johnny Gray like as a goal kicker? Like when you first seen Johnny Gray start kicking the ball around the corner, what was your thoughts on that? Like?
It was unbelievable. I mean, we'd all been toe pokers. And there he was kicking around the corner. And it was phenomenal. Like it was groundbreaking. And I have to admit, being a Jay Gray fan. And as a young fella, to get John Gray's signature was a coup.
Absolutely.
And then to be out there playing with him. And playing cards with him and having a beer with him, I couldn't believe it. I thought, how life is this? And I got to see a side of John that, to me makes him one of the best footballers to ever play for Norths. Because he had it all. He had it all. He could kick goals. He could control the game from dummy half. He was wily. He was shrewd. And he was as tough as nails.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was so tough. And you got to see it all with him, and to me, he's one of the best players to wear the red and black.
Yeah, that's nice. He'd love hearing that.
And look, I go to the North reunion at the Oval and at the club, and I still get a buzz when he comes up and says, "Andy, how you going, lad?" Oh shit, Jay Gray knows me.
That's great, isn't it? Yeah. So your highlight of your career. Does any one thing? Can you pick one thing that stands out?
Look, there were so many things that happened that I'm so proud of. To get my first North Sydney jumper was just having come through SG Ball, Flegg, President's Cup, and then to get your first grade jumper was an absolute standout. The first tap on the shoulder from Chow Hayes to say you're with my lot in reserve grade was a buzz because I got to play with my brother Jeff, who was a North Sydney player and who I'd grown up admiring for so many years. And to play with Jeff, and there's a story on that too because the next year Jeff signed with Canberra Raiders. And I played first grade for Norths and Jeff was playing first grade for Canberra Raiders. And in the middle of the game, I don't know how it worked out, but he gave me a push, I gave him a push. He gave me a punch, I punched him. and we've had this fight in the middle of the field, and my mum, who was in the stands, sort of after the game, she said, "We got to punch off her." She said, "I have never been so ashamed the only fight in the game, and it's my two sons.
Yeah.
You know, so it's,
So
so that was a proud moment. My debut for North in '82,
yeah.
running out against the arch enemy Manly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know, to play, man, it was at Brookvale, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
you know, we played them at Brookvale, and